Happy Friday. So today we're going to talk about dosing hoppers and is a dosing hopper worth it? So there's a few different ways you would want a dosing hopper, a few different reasons you'd want one, and a few different reasons why you might want to skip having one. So we're going to go over that. So what is a dosing hopper? Well, first of all, a dosing hopper is a hopper that holds your material and that you can fill. It's kind of like a surge hopper. You can fill it up, and then as you need it on the back end, you can let that material go through. So they typically always look like this, and I'm a horrible draftsman. I wouldn't call myself that anyways, but there's an auger in the bottom side. There could be a belt. The ones we use have augers, and there's legs, and the material would fall into the top here. We normally have openings. We normally put them close to the back because the pile ends up kind of looking like this inside as the material gets full, and this pile will move as this keeps going forward. The pile will move forward. So now you have this pile here, and then the old pile is out of the way, and now it's out of the way, and then your material fills in again, and that's how we would do it. So you end up with like these little mountains depending how you're running. So now what happens here is this material that you're gonna be running here needs to be granulated to some point, right? Half inch or so, inch, not much bigger. The more that it flows and the more granulated it is, the better it is. So what we would put after here, it could be anything. It could be a conveyor going up to a vertical mill, a turbo mill, an air table. So you're gonna use this wherever you want to feed something steady. And this is especially important if you are using, for example, a shredder. A lot of guys will upsize their shredder. You can never go too big on a shredder. That's kind of the common philosophy. People always think, like, no one ever says, oh man, I got too big of a shredder. It's one of those things that if you have a shredder that can handle a lot of material, you're just happy that you have that. So if you have a shredder that can do, say, 10,000 pounds an hour, so 10K, and you have a downstream that can only do 5 or 4, now you have a problem. Now you have to feed this thing all gingerly. The guy feeding it has to make sure he's only putting a little bit, and then he's trying to match the equipment downstream. What a holding tank buffer / dosing hopper or surge bin does is it allows you to just process, not even worry about it. You can run this thing for an hour, fill this thing way up, and then you can even pause using this for a little bit because you don't need to. This thing's full. And then this operator can go and clean up and sweep, go get his next bale, whatever it is. And then this thing here is just steadily feeding downstream. And then you have monitoring positions for, that sense how high this is, how full it is. And then that is feeding your downstream. So in that case, when you're using something for a shredder, we probably would use like a belted one, depending on what the shredder is. A belted hopper. There's a bunch of different types of hoppers. So the ones with the augers, we normally use these for material that is granular. Like we said earlier, half inch, 1 inch is kind of on the high side, all the way down to just granulated material. Now, if you're feeding a mill, like a turbo mill or a delamination mill or a vertical mill, you are now wanting that mill to run at full load amps. These mills operate at peak efficiency when they are running in their full load amp range. So if, for example, you have a 200 horsepower mill, your peak efficiency or your full load amps for that is going to be close to 215. So 180 to 215, this is at 480 volts. This amps here is kind of the range you want to be in, right? So the way you can achieve that is by running this dosing hopper into your mill at a steady speed that is going to cause you to have to stay between this range. And we can do this all with automation. So once it reaches past 215, this stops or slows down. And when it reaches below 180, it starts and speeds up and so forth. So that is how you do it. This is for a turbo mill. But the same goes for a granulator. If you have a granulator and you have a surge hopper feeding that granulator, once that granulator, you want that machine, you want the most out of that machine because you have this machine that can handle so much per hour. You really want to stretch that and get the peak efficiency out of that granulator. So now what you do is you find that range that you want to be in, and you adjust your PLC, your automation, to feed that mill at the peak efficiency that it can be fed with a dosing hopper. Now, where is it not worth it? Well, in the smaller plant where your shredder is sized pretty well to your granulator, to your downstream, to everything else, you can save a lot of money by not installing these up front. So your upfront cost is much less when you don't have a bunch of dosing hoppers. Those dosing hoppers take up more space too. So if you don't have much space, your downside is a dosing hopper is significant. It looks like the elephant in the room. It's a big machine. And it takes up all that space. So if you have a tight floor print, you wouldn't want to have a dosing hopper. If you're tight, your budget is tight, and you're doing a smaller plant, you might not want a dosing hopper. Now, we do make some smaller dosing hoppers that are a little cheaper and that don't take as much room. But the benefits might not be worth it depending on how small or how big the plant is. So medium plants, anything C2 or larger, I'd say yes, you can start talking about dosing hoppers. But anything C1 or smaller C2s, it's probably not worth it. So hope that helps. Let us know what you think in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Happy Friday.